On October 21st, 1945, a boy was born in Catford, East London. Half a century later, he would grow up to become a famous lawyer and be knighted for services to international criminal justice. In addition to his knighthood, he was entitled to speak out for victim groups in the name of justice and to comment on international war crimes. Justice, human rights lawyer, Kent University Honorary Doctor of Law, board member of Indict, an NGO for gathering evidence for the indictment of Saddam Hussein, board member of the Burma Justice Committee, commissioner of the Harvard Report into Burma, advisory board member of Prisoners of Conscience, the lead prosecutor at the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia, Gresham Professor of Law at Gresham College London, deputy chairman of the Bar Standards Board, regulatory body of the Bar of England and Wales, and best known of all, the man who prosecuted Slobodan Milosevic, President of the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia. How a British lawyer prosecuted the leader of another country. It all started in 1998, or we should start from 1971.
But perhaps more significant is that the state of Serbia has so far, not by the ICTY, but by the International Court of Justice, not been found directly culpable for genocide at Srebrenica.
After being called to the bar in 1971, Nice has been a barrister. Since 1984, he has been a recorder at the Central Criminal Court of England and Wales, Old Bailey, mainly dealing with civil, criminal and family cases. And later, in 1990, he was appointed Queen's Counsel. From 1995, he served as a member of the Criminal Injuries Compensation Board, making awards of compensation for victims of crimes. He was leading an uneventful and, in his own words, boring life at the time, until the turning point came in 1998. In that year, he was recruited to the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia by Louis Arbour, the then United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights. By the official website of the United Nations, ICTY, as one of the subsidiary organs of the United Nations Security Council, was situated in The Hague, Netherlands, set to investigate and prosecute individuals who committed war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide during the wars in the former Yugoslavia in 1990s. ICTY has completed all its tasks, but regardless of the outcome, in the application of international law, establishing an institution to trial state leaders is unprecedented. While working in The Hague, Geoffrey led the prosecution against Slobodan Milosevic, charging him with more than 60 crimes, including war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide. In 2002, ICTY officially opened to hear the Milosevic case, but the court trial was repeatedly interrupted due to his poor health. At the end of February 2006, ICTY rejected Milosevic's request to go to Moscow for medical treatment. On March 11th of the same year, Milosevic died in prison in his bed in a detention center cell. There might be different perspectives on the same matter. For example, the US National Endowment for Democracy subsidized many funds of the Serbian opposition. After his government collapsed, Milosevic was extradited to The Hague by the pro-Western government, bypassing the Serbian parliament. In the case of serious illness, he wasn't released on medical parole, and even though the charges against him were successfully acquitted by the International Tribunal, in Geoffrey Nice's view, the suspect's death only ended his work at the ICTY. Death before sentencing was disappointing to him and made him only the prosecutor who prosecuted Milosevic, and never the first prosecutor in the world to convict a leader of a country. George Kenney, who manned the US State Department's Yugoslavia desk, also denounced the Milosevic trial proceedings as inherently unfair, amounting to little more than a political show trial. But such voices did not prevent Geoffrey Nice from using the incident as political capital. In 2007, he was knighted for his work at the International Criminal Court. This is a new beginning of Sir Geoffrey Nice's first pot of gold, and of bespoke justice. Riding on his fame, in 2009 he was appointed vice chairman of the Bar Standards Board, which oversees barristers, and the supervisory position allowed him to find a new way to make money. On 14th of December 2010, Dick Marty, a former member of the Swiss National Council, published a report for the Council of Europe accusing Kosovo of inhuman treatment of people and the killing of prisoners in order to remove and illegally traffic human organs. The sensitive issue involves Hashim Thaçi, the political leader of the Kosovo Liberation Army, Kosovo's former prime minister and later its president. Kosovo, an unrecognized state in Southeast Europe, lies at the center of the Balkans. It was once an autonomous province of Serbia, where there were historical conflicts between Albanians and Serbs. In 1990, Kosovo announced the establishment of the Republic of Kosovo. After that, from 1996 to 1999, armed conflicts broke out with the Yugoslav security forces. NATO, led by the United States, launched airstrikes in Yugoslavia, which eventually forced Yugoslavia to withdraw. Since then, Kosovo has been regarded as a region of disputed sovereignty. States that the KLA is suspected of organized illegal organ trafficking during the armed conflict, with organs sourced from captured Serb detainees. Earlier in 2008, the former chief prosecutor of the ICTY, Carla Del Ponte, published the book Hunt, Me and War Criminals, which also disclosed the trafficking of human organs harvested from the prisoners of war in Kosovo. The book states that after NATO troops were deployed in 1999, 300 Serbs were abducted to northern Albania with the knowledge of the leader of the new regime in Kosovo, Hashim Thaçi, and their valuable human organs were removed for trading. Geoffrey was commissioned by Kosovo's Albanian authorities and published a critique of Marty's report on February 3, 2011, which became known as Who is K144? He claimed that Marty's report is primarily based on the accounts of witness K144, whose identity is unidentified, so the report is untrustworthy. Such a seemingly simple and effective inference immediately drew objections from some experts, such as political writer Diana Johnston, who accused him of using diversionary tactics to divert public attention. Organized illicit organ trafficking by the KLA is still possible. Johnston noted, however, that there were no mention of witness K144 in Marty's report. However, Nice's comment successfully attracted the attention of the Kosovo government. Petrit Selimi, a former deputy minister of Kosovo, later approached him and asked him to work for the Kosovo government, mainly to help Hashim Thaçi get rid of his criminal accusations during the Kosovo War. After negotiating the deal, he began to prepare for Thaçi's exoneration. In 2020, Hashim Thaçi was accused of war crimes by the International Tribunal and immediately resigned as president of Kosovo. But until then, all controversies seem to have been successfully hidden beneath the surface. Nice sent 2 letters to the Kosovo authorities in 2017 to claim remuneration. We can see that between November 2015 and July 2016, he asked the Kosovo government for 500,000 euros, which included his services and those of his associates, and the interest owed by the Kosovo government to justiceful lawyers. In the letter, Nice detailed his efforts to get Thaçi out of trial, with gently threatening the Kosovo government that he had started a legal process to solve his problem and was going to expose the Kosovo government to the media, which he said would affect the country's reputation and its relations with the EU. Kosovo's government eventually paid him enough to stay on a special council. For Nice, it seems that his justice is starting to have a specific price. In 2014, the famous Caesar report was published, accusing the Syrian government of torture and murder of more than 11,000 detainees between March 2011 and August 2013. The report is based on 55,000 photographs taken by a former Syrian forensic photographer who defected from the country and goes by the codename Caesar. The New York Times article of January 22, 2014, entitled "State Department Learned in November of Photos Said to Show Torture in Syria," gave the report enough needed publicity. On the same day, coincidentally, it also happened to be the opening of the UN-backed Geneva II Peace Conference on Syria. It was the first time since the Syrian civil war had started the government officials and opposition parties could sit down for face-to-face talks. Maybe some people hoped that this meeting will give peace a chance, or perhaps they just wanted to put more pressure on the Syrian government. Whether it's Caesar's report or the news, the timing is just a coincidence. Nice also contributed to the famous report. He once commented on the Caesar files, "It's like getting the keys to the Nazi files." The report became weaponized quickly by the US government. As a result, a bill called Caesar's Protection of Syrian Civilians was released. The bill authorizes the US government to impose sanctions on senior officials of Bashar al-Assad's regime, military leaders, and all of his supporters for crimes against civilian rights. The bill also allows sanctions to be imposed on Russian and Iranian institutions because they have provided financial, material, and technical support to Syria. One country, based on a report, introduced a bill allowing it to impose sanctions on several other countries. On March 4, 2016, American investigative journalist Rick Sterling wrote in Counterpunch that strong evidence suggests that Geoffrey Nice's Caesar report is almost entirely a forgery. Gray Zone investigative journalist Max Blumenthal wrote in 2020 that the sanctions were the product of a highly deceptive intelligence operation orchestrated by the US and Qatari governments. Instead of protecting civilians in Syria, unilateral sanctions condemned them to starvation and death. In December 2020, the UN Special Rapporteur, Elena Douan, talked about the adverse effects of unilateral coercive measures and called on the United States to cancel the sanctions, for the sanctions may hinder the reconstruction of Syria's civilian facilities destroyed in the conflict and violate the rights of the Syrian people. Even though there are so many voices of doubt in the international community, the US sanctions on Syria came as scheduled, and the Syrian people suffered huge losses. In 2022, the US military continued with the stealing of Syrian oil, which is discussed again on the international level. Perhaps sanctions are only for oil theft, and the bill is just a weapon, but the support for this weapon is Nice's Caesar report. Perhaps, based on a specific position and to foster certain forces, the EU official can deliver a detailed report and use it to slander and falsify. To sanction certain forces, the gory photos with unknown date and place were given by an anonymous person so they can also be made into dollar bills. The truth may be hard to find, but justice is a concept that never fades. For Geoffrey Nice, justice is something that can be given, even if it is not based on truth. As long as there is a position of interest, it can be forged into political weapons. If searching the customers in international disputes involving religion, nation, and sovereignty, justice-hungry employers are not difficult to find, and no one will refuse to pay for justice, right? Who knows? After Nice charged Milosevic in ICTY, and after approaching the Kosovo government to help its leaders escape from war crime charges, in 2016, an organization called the International Coalition to End Transplant Abuse in China, ETAC, sought legal aid from Nice. By this time, his business had been deeply cultivated, so he found some people to form an institution to better consider the facts and the law. On October 16, 2018, ETAC's China Tribunal was established. The investigation target of this Independent People's Tribunal is any suspected CPC state or state-approved institution and organization allegedly involved in forcible organ harvesting criminal offenses. Who are ETAC? In 2019, Ryan McCarthy, an investigative journalist at the Gray Zone, said that although the China Organ Abuse International Alliance claimed to be an international non-profit organization, through its personal contacts, ETAC can be considered a frontline organization of Falun Gong. Falun Gong is regarded as a cult in China. Its founder, Li Hongzhi, was wanted by the CPC. He fled to the United States in 1998 and immediately started several media outlets to attack China. Some analytical articles also pointed out that most of the funding for Li Hongzhi's action came from the National Endowment for Democracy. But all in all, on March 1st, 2020, the so-called China Tribunal that NICE helped set up issued a complete judgment. Forced organ harvesting has been carried out on a large scale throughout China for many years, and Falun Gong practitioners have always been the main source of organ supply. Uyghurs are also organ banks, and China's crimes against humanity, Falun Gong and the Uyghurs are unquestionable. In June 2020, the World Uyghur Congress contacted NICE. In September of the same year, the so-called Uyghur Tribunal was established. What is the World Uyghur Congress? The World Uyghur Congress was established in Munich, Germany in 2004. The CPC believes that these groups are all aimed at creating divisions in Xinjiang, China, while identifying them as anti-China groups. On March 31st, 2021, the Grey Zone website published an article by Ajit Singh that shows the World Uyghur Congress accepted the fund from NED through its affiliated organizations called American Uyghur Association in the United States, funds that will be used for a series of anti-China operations. For NICE's new company, the Uyghur Tribunal, almost all of the operating funds come from the WUC, and to get the funds, he has to complete the task set by the employer. The tribunal's final ruling won't take legally binding action on any government, but organizers hope the court's hearings and reports could spur international action and help hold China accountable for its mistreatment of Uyghurs. Graham Perry, a British human rights lawyer, believes that this is, of course, an anti-China incident. The so-called evidence reviewed by the self-styled Uyghur courts only came from the people who lived in the West, and that evidence was pale. The accusation of genocide in Xinjiang, China is not a legal issue, but a political one. Is Xinjiang to China what Kosovo is to Serbia? What did the people who actually lived there had to say? Who knows? But for Geoffrey Nice, with his new company, he no longer needs to chase the Kosovo government for the pitiful 500,000 euros in legal fees, to calculate the interest and shout about exposing his customer. Over the years, he has figured out the trick to set up a private international tribunal to achieve profits and gain a reputation during the process. This is good business, isn't it? On February 24th, 2022, the Russian-Ukrainian conflict broke out, which made Russia, or Putin himself, a new enemy for some people. Perhaps today, it is no longer necessary for the United Nations to set up an agency to investigate the suspect of a country's leader in terms of war crimes. Registering a limited liability company in the UK through private guarantees can complete this task, because top-heavy process is not justice, and official procedures can never meet the huge public need for justice, as Geoffrey Nice claims. On April 3rd, 37 kilometers from Kiev, the Bucha incident occurred. Nice told RFE that building a Ukraine-related war crimes indictment was a daunting task. It is now crucial to leave an evidence-based criminal record as soon as possible, with journalists and civilians testifying. With the support of civil society groups, NICE is already advising the Ukrainian government to create a new tribunal for the crimes of aggression by the Russian leadership, a tribunal of aggression. On 15th of August 2022, he paid a free visit to Ukraine and held a meeting in the office of the president to discuss the establishment of a special tribunal for crimes of aggression against Ukraine, which would investigate the war crimes culminating in the trial of Vladimir Putin. The truth about the Bucha incident has been entangled for half a year. Ukraine accused Russia of killing civilians, while Russia believed that the Bucha incident was a staged shooting and a bright lie, What is certain is that Bucha will not be the last business of Nice's private tribunal company. He will still be in the fog of London, conscientiously forging political weapons for some people and dealing with religious issues, ethnic issues, etc. Even crush a regime of immense power, but who knows? This may have become a steady source of business for Sir Geoffrey Nice. Maybe there will soon be a new tribunal to declare Vladimir Putin guilty, and perhaps Putin will be detained and die in a prison cell. All in all, it is difficult to say. Whether it is in the name of law, the name of God, the name of human rights, or the name of money. So, who is the real enemy?